Reading book on pausing and institutions. Written by me, Eric Wadell. First draft, February 2026. Introduction. Sometimes our favorite institution is our favorite because we want to keep it going forever. And that is when our favorite is the same thing as its longevity. At other times, our favorite is instead a short-lived institution, and that it is our favorite because it is brief in duration, but powerful in nature. Still, some institutions are both long-lived and powerful. Our priorities hold true worth when we have reflected upon them and still stand by them. The consequences of our choices hold true worth when we have studied the meanings of their causes. Institutions are most often studied in their functionality as institutions. But that is only half of what they are to us. The other half is how we feel about them. And that will be the focus of study for pausing and institutions. Many people feel fatigue about modern institutions, and our fatigue can be proof of that we carry something of great value inside of us, something that is looking for its counterpart in our outside. Pausing is the practice of taking a second or two to recognize what is going on. Whenever we get a hunch that there might be something interesting or puzzling going on, we pause for a second or two. Preface. Pausing and Institutions is the third book I have written on pausing. And also it is the one I have felt have done the most unto me while writing it. I am writing this preface as of February of 2026, a time when people are worried about their institutions. Daily we receive news about yet another institution struggling or even collapsing. It is burdensome to witness and navigate. This third book on pausing has been written from a place of me trying to make sense of this contemporary, turbulent, institutional change. To my help, I have used my imagination to consider how people might have built their institutions 40,000 years ago, when we still lived in tribes and caves. I found this imagined point of reference helpful as an emotional anchor to pause with. Our intellects have developed immensely throughout history, but our bodies, arguably, have not. This means that our bodies are emotional in a way that makes them expect the institutions of 40,000 years ago more than they expect our newly developed institutions. This means that we all carry with us two sets of expectations at all times about how our institutions should be. The first set is anchored in our emotional bodies and still expects the tribes of old. And the second set is looking towards the future through our intellectual thoughts and plans. In this book, I argue that these two sets of institutional expectations create what I call a dual loyalty of ours. One loyalty to the intuitive tribes of old, and the other loyalty to the smart solutions of the future. But this dual loyalty is not without difficulty for us. A tension of sorts is created regarding matters of degree. Should we build our institutions mostly in the image of emotional or intellectual expectations? What is the most important? That our institutions feel sound or that they are strategically sound? Throughout this book, I have tried to argue both cases. The ambition of the book has been to make pausing with our institutions easier, not to find any definitive answers as to how to build perfected institutions. So, for every aspect touched upon about institutions, you, the reader, will have opportunities to consider both how you feel about institutions, as well as how you strategically think they should be designed in order to be successful. Some examples of aspects covered in this book are: what is our modern version of the old tribes? What are modern total institutions like? And what about subgroups? What does it mean to build an institution from our individual person? And how do different kinds of institutions interact with one another? We will also look at institutions through situational lenses. This is a central aspect to pausing. To pause for a second or two and ask ourselves what kind of situation that we currently find ourselves in. We will ask how our institutions affect our sleep, and what kind of sudden acute situations that may occur in our institutions. We will consider what it means for us to make long-term plans for our institutions, as well as what it is that is making us confused about them. We will also think about what it is about institutions that makes us feel tired or even worn out. Perhaps this is the first book you have picked up about pausing, and then you will be happy to see that we start out this book by looking at the basic concept of pausing. What really is pausing, and what about it makes it useful for thinking about institutions? This will be made more clear next, in chapter 1. Writing this book has felt meaningful throughout, and I believe it might serve as a useful material going forward in institutionally uncertain times. By the end of this book, we will have arrived at a pausing kind of way to building our proper institutions. Not too bad.